to the Free Kick Podcast. My name is Todd, and your Philadelphia Union pick up 3 points against Inter Miami on Saturday night, a Messi-Less Inter Miami squad. And you would have felt like Messi was playing that game with all the Messi jerseys around Subaru Park Saturday night, whether it be P-Money Sign G, Barcelona, Argentina jerseys. The Messi fanboys were out in full force Saturday night. And that's what we're going to come to expect here on out, wherever you go to MLS games and Inter Miami's in town. Everybody's going to be wearing their Messi jerseys. And it didn't matter that Messi wasn't playing Saturday night against the Union. Fans still came out there as if he was. And it's really obvious that Messi was not out there. Messi, I don't think, can save this current Inter Miami squad. 11 points out of a playoff spot. A lot of work that Messi has to do to get this. We're not talking about next year's potential Miami team. We're talking about this current Miami team that picked up, yet again, another injury. This time to their starting left back, Negri, who it was announced on Tuesday afternoon that he had an ACL injury. And yet again, another player out for the rest of the season for Miami. It's been injury after injury after injury for Miami. And yes, there has been some bad soccer played along the way as well. But a big part of the reason Miami's having a terrible season is the injuries they've suffered as a club. And no, Messi cannot save this current Miami team, in my opinion. But we're recording this podcast Tuesday evening, so some of you guys might be listening to this podcast on Tuesday night. Maybe some of you guys are listening on Wednesday morning. And the reason being is all the storms we've had on Sunday. For people that haven't been on the podcast, you have no reason to know this, but I record the podcast next to my bedroom window. And so with all the lightning and everything, the thunder, like you guys 100% would have heard that background noise. And yeah, for the most part, I can get all that stuff cleaned up pretty well. But, I was like, let's record a podcast with no distractions. Monday, get home from work, completely exhausted from the humidity. And I was like, not doing a podcast today. Tuesday afternoon, get home from work. No power because the tree's down on the power lines. And so waiting forever for the power to come back on. And now here we are, Tuesday evening, recording the podcast for you guys. Hopefully the power stays on, does not go out because, yeah, I'm not going to lie, I'd be pretty pissed off if we got to re-record this whole podcast because the power decided to go off and now the audio didn't save. Like, that would be the worst case scenario. But we have a lot to talk about this episode, a ton of news, and in a sense, I'm glad that we're recording the podcast when we did because on Monday morning, the Bob Bradley news came out. On Tuesday afternoon, the MLS All-Star news came out. And so we do have some news points to talk about this episode. We'll obviously talk about the Philadelphia Union Inter Miami game. We'll talk about the 3 stars on the night, blunder of the week. I have a ton of clips from Liam Flach, 3 from Jim Curtin. So should be an action-packed episode. And without delaying too much more time, let's get straight into the news. So let's start out with the freshest news, and that is the 2023 MLS All-Star roster to face Arsenal on July 19th at Aldi Field down in D.C. Only one Philadelphia Union player on this list, and that is Jose Martinez, and it is about time Jose Martinez was announced as an All-Star. He's been playing at that level the last couple of years, and Wayne Rooney used one of his coach's selection on Jose. Applause to you, Wayne Rooney. But I do feel like Julian Kranza, Daniel Gazdag, and Kai Wagner were all robbed of not making this 2023 MLS All-Star team. But at the same time, I could care less about the All-Star game. And I look at it as, okay, well, the players that weren't selected for the Union, now they get time to spend with their family. They have time to recover. That's something we've talked a lot about the last couple of weeks on this podcast is how much traveling the players are doing, how they're away from their family constantly. how they have no time to recover. Well, they get that during this All-Star break. So, and on top of that, you don't have to worry about a player potentially getting injured. So I'm not too upset that only Jose Martinez got selected for this team. For all you guys that haven't seen the list, I'll go over the names quickly. The three goalkeepers were Berkey from St. Louis, Tyler Miller from DC, and Petrovic from New England. The defenders were Boreal from Cincinnati, Gallagher from Austin, Hollingshead from LAFC, Miazga, FC Cincinnati, Tim Parker, St. Louis, John Tolkien, Red Bulls, Walker Zimmerman, Nashville. Your midfielders were Luciano Acosta from Cincinnati, Thiago Almada from Atlanta. You had Hector Herrera from Houston Dynamo, Jose Martinez, Union, Aiden Morris, Columbus Crew, Hani Mukhtar, Nashville, Ricky Push, LA Galaxy, Lucas Celarayan, Columbus Crew. Your forwards, Christian Benteke, Dennis Bwanga, Christian Espinosa, Jesus Ferrer, Yakamakis, Atlanta United, Kai Kamara, and Jordan Morris. So one Philadelphia Union player. Again, I'm not upset, and I don't really care about who was on this list, who was left off of it. Yeah, for sure, there was some players. Carlos Heel from New England's a pretty big snub, but it's a popularity contest, and I could care less. I mean, I'm sure there are some players out there that are pretty upset that they weren't included in this list, but at the end of the day, it's just an All-Star game that means nothing, in my opinion. All right, so let's go on to point number 2. And that is something we talked about with Kyle and Jillian when they were on the podcast, and that was the Tom Bogert article talking about potential players to leave the Philadelphia Union. He talks about Kai Wagner, obviously, saying that Kai Wagner has already rejected a couple of contract extensions from the Union this season. Knowing Wagner would return to Europe at some point, they have several left backs as targets if Kai Wagner is to leave. Kai Wagner could potentially sign a pre-contract agreement this summer, and the Union would be open to allowing him to leave if he does sign that pre-contract agreement if the club wants Kai Wagner right now. The Union are okay letting Kai leave if they get the right compensation. If not, then he would stay at the club through the season and leave in the winter when his contract expires. And look, at the end of the day, if the Union lose Kai Wagner on a free, they're not losing a ton of money. They only paid a little under 100,000, I believe it was, originally for Kai. And I know they could have made millions of dollars for Kai. So in one sense, I guess they are missing out. They did miss out on a ton of money. I thought about this a lot the last couple of years where, yeah, we've heard the rumors. Oh, Kai Wagner's linked to this club. He's close to leaving. He's going to go to this club. And nothing ever materialized. He stayed at the club. And I've always thought in the back of my head, well, maybe he just walks free. He's a big part of what the Union are building, what they have built. He's a big part of them winning MLS Cup, trying to win MLS Cup. And Kai Wagner has been the best left back in the league for the last couple seasons. And that's going to be extremely difficult to replace. And so maybe you find it worth it to just let him leave on a free. Maybe the Union have always thought that. I do think that they've always been open to allowing Kai to leave, but for whatever reason, deals that look like they were potentially going to be close never came to fruition, and he's remained a Union player throughout. And now with his contract expiring in the winter, now he's free to sign, talk with any club that he wants, and the Union could lose Kai Wagner for free. I think we all knew that that day would eventually happen, and maybe it doesn't happen. Maybe this is, Kai Wagner is still trying to draw this out. Maybe he's trying to get more money from the Union. Maybe he's trying to become a DP left back. Who knows? But I do think Kai Wagner is being completely honest when he says he wants to return back to Europe and test himself in the highest leagues possible. So we'll see what happens there. Tom Bogert also talked about Jack McGlynn, saying that Philadelphia has yet to receive any official offers, but the union is aware of interest at clubs abroad. McGlynn has an Irish passport, meaning he wouldn't be subject to England's work permit policy. The passport can help facilitate moves elsewhere in Europe as well. McGlynn isn't expected to depart Philly this summer, but a deal agreed now for the winter could make sense for all parties. Just like we saw with Paxton Aronson and Brendan Aronson, where Brendan went to Salzburg after the season was done with the Union. The Union had agreed to a deal during the season with Salzburg. They agreed to allow the Union to keep a hold of Brendan until the MLS season was done. Frankfurt said, yeah, Philadelphia can keep a hold of Paxton until the season's done. And then he eventually joined Frankfurt. So I do think that deal would make sense for Jack McGlynn, for the Union, and whatever team that Jack McGlynn potentially winds up at. Could the Union sell him this summer? Yeah, if a huge offer comes through, but I don't think so. With him being just 19 years old, I think teams would be willing to allow him to finish the season in Philadelphia and then come in the winter to get acclimated at his new club. So we shall see what happens there. One player I don't expect that to happen to is Julian Carranza, because if a team's paying $8+ million for a striker, they're going to want to have that player right away. And we talked about the interest from European clubs for Julian Carranza. It's again what Tom Bogert is reporting. And I think a deal would be more likely to happen in the winter as opposed to in the summer. But if a huge offer comes in for Julian Carranza, there's no way that the Union turn that down and say, oh, yep, we're not going to accept $10+ million. We're going to keep hold of Julian Carranza. Like that would be an extremely hard offer to turn down. So we'll see what happens with Julian Carranza. I fully expect him to be here until the end of the season. And then the last player that Tom talked about was Olivier Bazo. Tom said a summer move is possible, but no bids have arrived yet. And that's pretty much all he said on Bazo. And I feel like we've heard the last couple seasons from Jim Curtin say, oh, Bazo can play in Ligue 1 in France. Teams are interested. Teams are watching. And now Tom's also saying the same thing that Jim Curtin said the last couple years. You know, if the Union do lose Bazo in the summertime, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. I think Nate Harriel's more than ready. I do think Nate's a better defender. We've seen the last couple games, Nate's got better and better offensively. And I'm just waiting for Nate to be given the chance. And he impresses so much that now he's taking that starting spot away from Bazo again. So, yeah, I mean, out of all the players that I talked about, I think the one you're most willing to let leave in the summer would be Bazo, 100%. But we shall see what happens there. And then the last player that's been linked away with a move, and this wasn't from Tom Bogert, this is from Sky Sports in Germany. We saw on Friday that Leon Flach was linked to a move to German club Werder Bremen, also linked with a move to Blackburn Rovers, and apparently a couple bottom of the half table Premier League clubs. Again, reported by Sky Sports Germany. Leon Flach has a club option for the 2024 season. Then after that, he can leave on a free. And I think there's a lot of fans out there that would say, oh, well, it's not a big deal if the Union lose Leon Flach. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Nobody on this team does what Leon does in the midfield defensively. I think Leon has the highest soccer IQ, if not one of the highest soccer IQs on this team. What he does pressing-wise, what he does cutting out the passing lanes, tracking players, none of that shows up on the stat sheet. And I think because of that, a lot of fans just assume, oh, Leon Flach's not good. Leon Flach's this, Leon Flach's that. But I said that a couple months ago. The stats prove every single year Leon Flach's getting better and better offensively. we've now seen the last 2 games, Leon Flach get involved in the offense with getting an assist against Orlando City for Jack McGlynn, getting a goal against Inter Miami. And Leon Flach was asked after the game about all the rumors linking him away from the club.
No, I think today was the best example that I just try to do my stuff here, and then the rest is also coming. I mean, if you do good somewhere, then some speculations, blah, blah, blah. But in the end, I'm here. I have a great team, great coaches, great stuff. And I just enjoy to be here, and I think I have showed that over the last couple of weeks. Start of the season was maybe not easy, so with the injury. So I'm just enjoying right now how everything is going, and probably have to recover after having 2 scores in 2 games. So I don't know how to deal with that, but yeah.
And you can hear Leon Flach joking, yeah, I don't know how to deal with 2 scores in the last 2 games with that assist and that goal. And I joked with people after the game. I said, well, you know, these rumors came out on Friday about Leon Flach, and now it's motivated him to get involved offensively. And that goal that he scored, now add another $1 million to the price tag, whatever the Union are asking. And Sky Sports in Germany were reporting that the Union wanted at least $3 million for Leon, which I think is a fair offer for him, without a doubt. But if the Union let him go in the summertime, I think that would be a huge blow, because now your depth that you are so happy about, now it starts to dwindle. If you let Jack McGlynn go in the summertime, now you have 2 midfielders gone. And yes, you can play Andres Pereira, Jesus Bueno, but then where's your depth? You don't have it. And so if the Union do sell Leon Flach, I think just like Jack McGlynn, that would be a wintertime move. That way, that gives the Union time to go out and find replacements for these players. And yeah, for sure, you can get replacements now. I'm sure Ernst Tanner has targets if any of his players do get sold, because then he wouldn't be doing his job if he didn't. So I'm sure he's prepared for all scenarios, but I'd be shocked if Leon Flach leaves the club this summer. But let's go ahead and talk about the last piece of news, and that is Toronto FC announced on Monday that sporting director and head coach Bob Bradley has been relieved of his duties effective immediately. Also relieved of the duties was head assistant coach and technical director, and I should add, former Philadelphia Union assistant coach Mike Strober. He's also left the club. And when you look at it, since 2022, when Bradley took over in Toronto, Toronto went 12, 25, and 17, 53 points, 0.98 points per game. 0.98 points. That was tied with DC United during that stretch for the fewest points per game. 0.98, that's not even a point. That is horrible. Those 12 wins are the fewest in MLS in that time frame. They have given up 92 goals, which was the second most in MLS during that stretch. DC United in first with 97. And not only was Bob Bradley the head coach, he was the sporting director. And look at the moves that he made. Trading for Mark Anthony Kaye from Colorado. Signing Insigne. Sign Sean Johnson as a free agent. Sign Matt Hedges as a free agent. Traded promising youngsters Luca Petrasso to Orlando. Jacob Schaffelberg to Nashville. Alejandro Pozuelo to Inter Miami. It's not been the greatest moves by Bob Bradley as the sporting director. A lot of head-scratching moves. And when you're paying as much money as Toronto is for Bernardeschi, for Insigne, you better hope that you're getting results. They missed the playoffs last season. They're 100% going to miss the playoffs this season. And I remember going over season predictions. I said, whatever managers miss the playoffs this season, they should be fired when more than half of the league makes the playoffs now. It's unexcusable if you don't make the playoffs. And when you look at how much money Toronto has spent, yeah, Bob Bradley 100% deserved to be fired. He's not made the best choices as manager, as sporting director. And everybody knows the article that The Athletic put out a month ago talking about how there was friction in the locker room, how Bob Bradley basically lost the locker room, how the players didn't trust Michael Bradley because he's Bob Bradley's son. And so what could they say around Michael that they weren't afraid that he won't report to his dad? And when you have players feeling that way, it's a lot easier to get rid of one person as opposed to multiple players. And so they opted to get rid of Bob Bradley, who I do feel for because I do think he's a decent coach. But 0.98 points per game is not good enough. 12 wins since 2022 is not good enough. I think Chicago Fire could do well with a manager like Bob Bradley. Had Bob Bradley return back to the club where he started to make a name for himself. Maybe that's a possibility. But the truth of the matter is Toronto hasn't been a great team the last couple of years. And you take away what the club did under Greg Vanney, winning some MLS Cups, it's not been a successful franchise. Yeah, they have a ton of money. One of the richest ownership groups in the league. But when you're just spending money just to spend money, you get the results that you've got the last couple of years, and you're going to miss the playoffs back-to-back years. So, yes, some of the blame falls on Bob Bradley, but I do also believe some of the blame has to fall on ownership for their poor signings, whether it be players, whether it be coaches. And then you look at what's happened with the supporters getting into fights, throwing megaphones at players. It's been a rough couple years in Toronto. But let's go ahead and talk about the Philadelphia Union versus Inter Miami game. And the first thing that I want to address before we talk about some negatives, some positives in this game is just all the complaining I saw on social media on Saturday night for head referee Malik Badawi. That was only his 7th match as an MLS head referee, and he's refereed 117 matches throughout his young career, with 89 of those coming in the USL Championship. And he averages around 3.2 yellows per game in his 7 MLS matches. He handed out 3 Saturday night, 2 to the Union, 1 to Miami. And yeah, you can say that they were yellow cards that weren't justified. Okay, I hear you, because I felt the same way when I initially saw the fouls. But watching the replays, I definitely understand why Mikel got a yellow card. Pulled a defender from behind, pulled on his jersey. That's usually going to get you a yellow card. Jose Martinez is the one that I was even more upset about, because from the press box, it looked like it was just a regular foul. But I got to give a credit to the referee for keeping an eye on the action, because it was 100% after I saw the replay, 100% a yellow card on Jose Martinez, because he kicked out Cremachi after he had just lost the ball. So Jose Martinez kicked his right foot out, and that foul happened so quickly. And for the referee to see that happen, well played to him. And I think overall the referee deserves applause for how the game went, as opposed to how some fans were trying to make it seem like the game was going. Only 18 fouls in the game, 31 throw-ins combined for both teams, and only 2 corners all game long. Wasn't many stoppages, and I thought the game had a good flow to it. And that's a credit to the referee for having a good handling of the game. It's a credit to the players not constantly kicking the ball out of bounds. This game went by quickly. It was not really back and forth. A lot of build-up play. Okay, maybe in the second half, we saw Miami bringing it more to the Union. But yeah, the point of the matter is the referee had good control of this game, called fouls where they were necessary, didn't try to stop the game too much. And that's what you want to see. You want to see a referee not make the game about him. Okay, if there's a foul, call the foul, but don't constantly blow your whistle. And to only call 18 fouls in this game, that does seem kind of low. So I was really impressed by Malik for his 7th MLS game to call a game as well as he did. Now, I might be in the minority. A lot of you guys might be saying, nah, you have no clue what you're talking about. That was a terribly rough game. My opinion, I don't feel that way at all. But like we did last episode where I talked about the negatives and the positives, I kind of want to stay with that theme. Thought it worked well last episode. Maybe it's something that we continue to do going forward. And Jim Curtin said right after the game, he said that the Union did not play their best soccer, that the team was surprised that they were going into the half 3-0, that they didn't deserve to be up 3-0 going into the half. And they laughed about it. But nonetheless, the Union were going into the half with a huge lead. And credit to Miami for coming out in the second half and getting that early goal, for not letting the scoreline keep them down. All these players on the field on the night have something to fight for. Because you best believe that this roster is going to look completely different for Miami next season. A lot of these players are probably questioning their future. Is it going to be in Miami? Are they going to be playing much next season? And so any opportunity that they're given to play, to start, they're going to take advantage of that. And like I mentioned, Jim Curtin was not happy at all by the way that the Union played. And he had a lot of praise for Miami as well.
I don't think we played our best soccer, not even close. So overall, again, they gave us some problems. It was difficult for us to get around the ball. We chased a lot, and we talked at halftime about, we're at our best when we're all sprinting together 10 yards rather than, jogging around for 100+ yards. And I think they understood that. Didn't really fix it in the second half, but give the guys credit for grinding out a 4-1 win that, maybe wasn't indicative of the game. So it's a big 3 points. I'm grateful to the fans that again made this place really, really loud. So again, it looks good on paper, but I think still a lot of things we can work on and improve.
Yeah, 100%. That 4-1 scoreline does not explain the full game at all. If you're just looking at the box score and you see 4-1, you would think, oh yeah, the Union absolutely dominated this game. No, not at all. It does not do this game any justice whatsoever. If you want to look at the XG, it was 0.88 for the Union, 0.98 for Miami. Miami had more XG than the Union did. The Union and Miami both didn't even get to 1 XG, which means that they were expected to score 1 goal. And somehow this game ends with 5 goals scored between the two teams. It didn't feel like the Union deserved to win that game 4-1. Did it feel like Miami deserved to get a goal? Probably not. Because the Union, yeah, they gave up chances, but none of them really tested Joe Bendik. Joe Bendik really didn't have to work. Only had 1 save this game, 2 saves maybe. It couldn't have been more than 2, right? Just looked it up. 1 save all game. Yeah. Joe Bendik wasn't tested at all. And that 1 save that Joe had, fantastic save. Pushed the ball over the crossbar. Terrific save by Joe Bendik. And the Union are going to be happy with those 3 points. But do they feel like they deserve to score 4 goals? Probably not. Yeah, we saw a ton of chasing out there by the Union. You heard Jim say, yeah, we didn't fix the issues in the second half. But how angry can you be when your team scores 4 goals? They take advantage of the mistakes by Miami. They get all 3 points on a night that Cincinnati and Nashville both lost. Can't be too angry. But was it the best? Absolutely not. When you play better teams, are they going to punish you? Probably. I thought Miami used their width well in this game, whether it be Robert Taylor, who scored once again against the Union, Pizarro, Robinson. I thought they really stretched the Union well. The Union couldn't get enough pressure out wide. They were slow to shut down the ball out wide. As soon as, whether it be Bizer, whether it be Matt Real, as soon as they went out to close down the ball, Miami got rid of that pass right away. We saw on the goal that Miami scored, they overloaded the right side. I talked about this in the goals breakdown. If you guys haven't seen that, youtube.com/freekickpod. Release that episode right away, not this podcast. But you saw the overload on the right by Miami. Matt Real was slow to closing down the initial ball. And now you have Jose Martinez and Alejandro Bedoya pushing over right. And you know what? They still have Pizarro. They still have Taylor out wide on the left. And there's nobody on the Union marking these players. And that's where the goal came from, out wide. They used the ball initially out wide on the right, and it ended with the ball on the wide left. And then Taylor cuts in, gets a deflection. So the Union, really, really slow, shutting down that ball out wide. And could they have done a better job? Yes. 100%. They could have done a better job. And if it's a better team, they're probably going to capitalize on the Union's chances. They're going to have better finishing than Miami did on the night. Because it wasn't the Union that beat Miami. It was Miami beating Miami. And you have to look back at the Union and credit them for taking advantage of Miami's mistakes. A botched throw-in on the Julian Kranza goal. McVeigh late stepping to the ball. Ball bounces over his head. Getting out jumped on a corner kick when a guy's 5'11 and Jacob's 6'2. Nothing you can really do there. That's just Jacob Glesnes out-muscling somebody that he is 2 times the size of. A player that's only 19 years old. Of course, Jacob Glesnes is going to win that battle. A lot of mistakes by Miami against the Union. How much can you take away from this game and be positive about? Not a ton. Not a ton. You take advantage of Miami's mistakes. You punish them. That's great. That's what you want to see. But at the same time, you didn't defend well. There's a play, too, in this game where Jacob Glesnes should have kicked the ball out of bounds, keeps the ball in play, then he gets beat by pace. Jack Elliott gets nutmegged. And then, do they call the play off for offsides or something like that? I forget exactly what happens, but it was poor defending, once again, by the 2 center backs in Jacob Glesnes and Jack Elliott. And poor clearances all night long by the Union. And we saw that, especially when the Union switched to that back 5. 4 chances given up when they went with 3 center backs, Glesnes, Elliott, and Harriel. And not blaming Nate whatsoever. You had 3 chances on the ball that Robbie Robinson sent into the box in the 76th minute to Martinez. The shot was blocked by Nate, but Nate didn't clear the ball as well as he should have. And now you get a shot by Stefanelli, and then Martinez gets a chance once again. And all 3 of those shots got blocked. So credit on the Union for being aware. Okay, look, we're not defending well, but we need to do everything we can to throw our bodies in front of these balls to make sure it doesn't end up in the back of the net. And Jim Curtin talked about this midweek, saying that, it seems like every time that Joe Bendick's in the goal, that players are trying way too hard. Just play your game. Yes, Andre Blake's not here. But don't try to compensate for him not being here. Just play your game. Focus on your game. Don't focus on Joe Bendik being the goal. Trust Joe. You don't have to do anything different other than playing your game. And it seems like every time Joe Bendik's in the goal, yes, the Union can concede goals. Yes, some of them are Joe Bendik's fault. But not all of them are. It's because you have the center backs trying way too hard. Just defend. Keep the player in front of you. Take the easy clearance. Kick the ball out. Let players get in position and reset. If you know a player has pace, you know you're going to get beat by pace. Just kick the ball out. Let the play reset. And yes, as much as we're talking about Miami beating themselves, the Union have not helped themselves when Andre Blake hasn't been in goal. And even when Andre's been in goal, right? We've seen mistakes from the center backs, from the defenders. And the only reason that more goals haven't been conceded is because of Andre Blake being the goalie. And that's not a slight on Joe Bendik, but that tells you how important Andre Blake is. Is this the best defensive team in MLS? Absolutely not. But they look even better when you have Andre Blake in goal. And this team is going to keep getting more and more exposed when they make stupid mistakes instead of just playing it simple. And so a team like Miami couldn't capitalize on those chances. You gave them chances. They just couldn't finish. And credit to the defenders for throwing their bodies in front of the ball. But against better teams, that cannot happen. You had a chance with Leo Campana. Again, another block shot. Campana should have scored in the 82nd minute. Miami, in the second half of the game, were bringing pressure, a lot of pressure. And the Union did not seem comfortable playing with that formation to close out the game. Should the Union play that formation going forward when Damian Lowe's not available? Probably not. Probably not. Because I get it. A lot of people say, oh, throwing Brendan Craig. He's a center back. Brendan Craig's not ready for first team football at all. Yeah, he might look good against people his age at the U20 World Cup, against other MLS Next Pro teams, but he is not ready for MLS play, in my opinion. I don't think he's physical enough for it. I don't think he has the pace for it. And I get it, right? You don't know until you give him the playing time, until you see it. But in my opinion, I don't think he's ready. He looks good playing against people his age, but does he look like the best player out on the field that deserves to give him more minutes? No. And Jim Curtin said that midweek. He said, we don't just hand out minutes. We don't just give out minutes just to give out minutes. You have to earn minutes. And obviously, there's not been enough that Brendan Craig's doing in practice. Enough with the MLS Next Pro team, Union 2. He's not doing enough to earn him those minutes with the first team. And so I really hope that the Union don't go back to this formation to close out games until Damian Lowe's back, because yeah, a lot of miscommunication when the Union should just be defending. But if you want to flip it and look at the positives, and shout out to Mike Thomas and Ricky Zelfro, as soon as this goal happened, they both said something similar on Twitter, said, Jacob Glesnes listens to Free Kick Pod. Shout out to Todd for calling this on the previous episode. Not scoring and not defending set pieces well enough. First corner of the game. Goal. Beautiful ball in by Kai Wagner. Terrific finish by Jacob Glesnes. A goal that you expect him to score because he's going up against a guy who's 5'11", Jacob 6'2". David Ruiz is only 19 years old. And Jacob Glesnes has been playing professional soccer for years. And so you 100% expect Jacob to win that battle. And we talked about Kai Wagner not having the best service in the box the last couple games. And that wasn't the case on Saturday evening. Yes, the Union only got 2 corners this whole game. But I thought the service into the forwards, into the center backs. It was good by Kai Wagner this game. Really, really good. 1-for-1 on crosses where he was ridiculously bad against Orlando City midweek. And makes up with it with good service this past Saturday against Inter Miami. Set pieces are huge, especially a team like Miami, who coming into this game had given up 8 goals, which is the most in MLS. And so that was always going to be a key area. Of course, Miami is saying, don't give up crosses, don't give up set pieces in dangerous areas, don't give up corners. Only gave up 2 corners this game. But one of those corners did result in a goal given up, which they're not going to be proud of at all, since they've struggled all season long with that. Was it the perfect game from the Union? No. Could the Union have played better? 100%. Do you hope that they play better against Atlanta United this weekend? 100%. Do they need to play better? Absolutely. Because Atlanta will punish them. And it does feel strange not going down to Atlanta this year, where the last 2 years I've been down there, I saw 2 draws, 2 come from behind games from the Union. And if the Union lose this weekend down in Mercedes-Benz Stadium, blame me for not going down to the stadium. But then I'm going to flip it and say, hey, look, nobody paid for me to go down there. People should have paid for me to go down to Atlanta this weekend, and the Union would have got a result. So let's hope that the Union don't win in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. But they have to be. They have to be better than they were against Orlando City, better than they were against Inter Miami. Because Atlanta will make them pay. That atmosphere down in Atlanta is no joke if you have not been. Fantastic environment. The best home support that I've seen in MLS that I've been to in person. Now, granted, I haven't been to a ton of stadiums, but I've been to enough to feel confident that Atlanta United have the best fans in MLS. Seeing them draw 50,000 fans in Mercedes-Benz Stadium, that's insane. That is insane that they can draw that many fans in a football town. They love their Atlanta Falcons. They love their Georgia Bulldogs. They love Georgia Tech. And they can draw that many fans to the Benz to see a professional soccer team. Well done, Atlanta. But those are my thoughts from the game. Let me know. Am I being too harsh? Am I missing anything else that stood out to you guys as positives? Is there anything else that you guys thought were negatives from this game that I didn't bring up? Let me know, as always, on social media. But let's go ahead and talk about the 3 stars on the night. Number 3, Kai Wagner. 1 assist, 1 chance created, 6 passes into the final third. 1 out of 1 accurate crosses. 1 out of 1 tackles won. 1 interception, 4 ball recoveries, 3 out of 5 ground duels won. And this was probably one of Kai's most complete games so far this season. Not only for what he did offensively, but defensively. And that's one thing that's really stood out to me about Kai's game this season, is how good of a defender he is. And I know he only played 45 minutes in this game, so how can I be saying that, oh, he was one of the 3 stars on the night? Jim Curtin said that they took Kai out of this game as a precautionary measure. Doesn't think it's anything too serious, but they'd rather be safe than sorry and not have any further damage than what possibly could have been done to Kai's hamstring. So hopefully Kai Wagner is good to go this Sunday down in Atlanta. We shall see, but yeah, defensively, Kai was doing it all in the first half against Inter Miami. And we can praise him all we want for what he does offensively. Fantastic left back attacking. But defensively, I don't know. I think this might be the best we've ever seen Kai on the season. Number 2 on the night, Liam Flach. Guy gets not enough credit from the fan base. 1 goal, 2 out of 4 tackles won, 2 interceptions, 3 ball recoveries, 4 out of 4 ground duels won. Only touched the ball 22 times, 5 out of 8 completed passes. So yeah, I mean, Leon wasn't asked to create. He never is asked to create. But what a game. What a game by Leon Flach. defensively. And then he pops up with a goal. We talk about unlikely heroes in Jack McGlynn and Jose Martinez last game against Orlando City. Well, then also on that list has to be Leon Flach. Pops up with his first MLS goal since 2021 against Columbus Crew, which happened in September or October. I forget exactly when. Yes, we all remember his goal he scored against Cincinnati last year in the playoffs. Leon Flach doesn't get many opportunities to shoot. And Leon Flach, I didn't know he had that in his locker room to hit a ball as well as he did. And Jim Curtin, full of praise for Leon Flach after the game.
He's been good, man. He's having a really good season. He does so much dirty running. And again, to chip in with a goal, I think was deserved. I'm a big believer that, when you work hard in this sport, good things happen for you. And that's a very simple, easy, clean thing to say. And Leon is, I think, a great example of that. The harder he works, I think he gets rewarded for things. To see him still pressing in the 90th minute and running and trying to win balls back for us was really good. So he's a kid that does a lot of the dirty work on the field that maybe isn't, sexy or fun to watch, but he was rewarded tonight with a really good goal. He hit that really well, kept it low, and hit the target. So overall, really good game from Leon, and it's been, like I said, a good season for him, and he does a lot of things that don't always show up on the stat sheet, and tonight he hit the stat sheet, which is good.
Yeah, he did. He hit the stat sheet with his goal, with his tackles won, with interceptions, ball recoveries, still running full speed in the 90th minute. This guy does it all. This game. Did it all this game. But he does it all defensively every single game. And I just wish, fans, I don't know what they're looking for. I don't know what they're looking for in Leon Flach. We know what he is. He is what he is. That's what I wanted to say. He is what he is. He was never brought in to be an offensive player. He was brought in to replace some of that pressing that Brendan Aronson was doing for the club when he was here. Is Leon Flach Brendan? No, he's not. Does he get close to Brendan's pressing numbers? A little bit. But he didn't have the offensive game that Brendan had. Brendan was the complete number 8 that you could want for this system. Did it both offensively and defensively, with creating chances, with scoring goals, with assisting. Brendan's the perfect number 8 you want for the system. And so you can't get a player that's exactly like Brendan Aronson. That's fine. But you bring in a player that's exactly like him defensively. And yet, fans always want to bash on this dude. And I don't get it. You have enough goal contributions from elsewhere in this lineup. You get it from Malik Badawi. You get it from your fullbacks. You get it from your front 3. You don't need to get it from Leon Flach. But some fans, they make it feel like you do. That, if Leon Flach's not scoring, if he's not assisting, he's a bad player. He's not at all. Is he a perfect player? No. Is there things that he can work on for his game? Absolutely. And Leon Flach will be the first person to tell you that. He will be the first person to tell you that. I think a lot of times fans forget how young Leon Flach really is. He's only 22 years old. Only 22 years old. When he came to the Union from St. Pauli, he wasn't playing first team soccer consistently. And that's a huge step to go from hardly playing with the first team to now you come to a new team in a new league to playing pretty regularly. It's a huge change from what you're used to. But that is part of the reason why Leon Flach came back to America. Because yes, he was born in Texas, for people that are new to the show that are unaware where Leon Flach's from. Yes, he sounds super German in that clip, but he was born in Texas. And he does have U.S. citizenship. He could one day play for the U.S. national team. Why he wasn't included in the Gold Cup, I have no clue. The Gold Cup roster is pretty underwhelming. Leon Flach definitely could have been on that roster, in my opinion. There's some players, Jordan Morris, who don't deserve to be playing for the U.S. anymore, in my opinion. Christian Raldon. All right, I've seen enough. Let's get new players in here that haven't played with the national team yet. Let's see what they got to offer. And if they're just as good or just as bad as Jordan Morris and Christian Raldon, then we know not to call them up again. But the Gold Cup, who cares what the U.S. does in it? Let's see what you got. But Leon Flach doesn't get caught up, and it's enough Leon Flach talk, right, for this episode. You guys happy if we move on from Leon? Number one star on the night is Julian Kranza. 1 goal, 2 out of 4 tackles, 1 interception, 6 ball recoveries. Finally gets a goal. Julian Kranza, after not scoring in 2 games, after missing some easy chances, finally capitalizes on a chance against his former club. Finally scores a goal against Inter Miami. And this is what we've come to expect from Julian Kranza the last 2 seasons. A proven goal scorer. When you give him a chance, he's going to capitalize on it. Force an own goal by Miami to give the Union the 4th. Works his tail off defensively. And again, you'll see what I'm talking about if you go and watch the goal breakdown video. I love Julian Kranza. It's got to be up there with some of your favorite Union players of all time because of what this kid does defensively. As a striker, what he does defensively as a striker. Not many strikers in the world, and we're not just talking about MLS, we are talking about the entire world. Not many strikers are going to put in a shift like Julian Kranza does defensively. A lot of strikers in the world are just going to cherry pick. They're just going to stay in that attacking half at midfield. Not Julian Kranza. He's going to track back and win that ball back if he has a chance. It's exactly what he did when the 4th goal of the Union scored. The play started and ended with Julian Kranza. And I don't know. I don't know if the Union will ever get a player like Julian Kranza. And that's why I'm trying to enjoy him while we have him. And thank goodness, Miami made one of the biggest mistakes that they possibly could have made as a franchise by selling Julian Kranza for as cheap as they did. They could have, and they should have. I laugh about it all the time, where the Union got $1.1 million in GAM for Kasper Schmeichel, and you guys know I'm pro Schmeichel, but Julian Kranza is 20 times, 30 times the player Kasper ever will be. And they only had to pay $500,000 in GAM. How did the Union make more money in GAM for Kasper Schmeichel than what Miami were asking for Julian Kranza? Unbelievable business by Ernst Tanner. I mean, it is crazy when you compare it to that the Union got double the money for Kasper than they had to pay for Julian Kranza. And they've got 20 times, 30 times the player Kasper Schmeichel was for the Union. Unbelievable business. And I love that guy. I love Ernst Tanner. I love Julian Kranza. And man, it's going to suck. It's going to suck when Julian eventually leaves. But yeah, we've been saying the same thing about Kai Wagner the last couple of years. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with Julian Kranza this summer and in the winter. Because I believe his contract, just like Leon Flach's, is up after the 2024 season. So it's not going to be much longer that the Union have a lot of this core together. Could lose Leon Flach, Kai Wagner, Julian Kranza. And then if offers big enough come into the Union, of course, they're going to start talking about moving those players. So yeah, after 2024, Julian Kranza will be free to leave the Union. A big, absolutely humongous offseason coming up for the Union and Julian Kranza. Will he extend his contract with the Union? I'm not sure, honestly. I don't think he would. And you cannot afford to lose a player like Julian Kranza for free. So the wintertime, I'm thinking the winter will be the time that the Union move on from Julian Kranza. Just my opinion. Could be completely wrong, but yeah, the winter. The winter seems to make the most sense. But quickly, I want to go over blunder of the week, and I saw this. I don't even know how it got on my news feed, but apparently the Chicago Red Stars, which is the NWSL team in Chicago, apparently they were stuck on a plane for 4.5 hours, and they were flying Delta, and the coach put out a tweet and said, how have we not been given any water on this flight with our flight stuck on the runway? And there's a couple things that are wrong about that whole situation. Number one, I think any professional sports team that's not flying charter is pretty messed up. And I get it. Charter is super expensive. But this is the highest level of women's soccer here in America. And you don't have them flying charter. I don't know. I guess my blend of the week is yes to the airline, to Delta or maybe it was United Air. I try to look for the tweet. That's why we're stalling for time. But I see the coach deleted the tweet. I guess somebody in the PR department probably said, hey, you might not want to have that tweet up there. So now I feel bad calling out potentially the wrong airline. But regardless, yes, it should be blunder of the week for not being taken care of properly on the plane. But it should also be blunder of the week to the NWSL for not flying their team's charter, especially when you only have 12 teams in your league. You 100% should be flying charter for all 12 teams. It's kind of unacceptable, don't you think? That the highest level of soccer, the highest level of soccer for women in this country aren't flying charter. Kind of ridiculous, in my opinion. So, this is Blender of the Week. If you guys, as always, have suggestions for Blender of the Week, you can hit me up on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook at FreeKickPod. It's the best way to get in contact with me. Wherever you guys get your podcast, The Free Kick. Plugging it once again, the YouTube page, youtube.com/FreeKickPod. I love all the new subscribers that we're getting on the YouTube channel. As always, continue to spread that word. Like the videos, comment. Love getting feedback, whether it's good, bad, how you guys feel like the podcast is going. And for the most part, you guys seem to be enjoying the pod. So I appreciate all the podcast feedback you guys are giving, all the YouTube feedback. And even, yes, somebody brought it to my attention. Apparently, there's people on the Union subreddit that suggested the podcast when somebody was asking, what podcast should I listen to? Apparently, some people suggested this podcast. So if that was one of you, I appreciate you guys suggesting the podcast. And for the people that commented and said, yeah, it's all right. Or, yeah, I can't listen to Todd while he's talking by himself. Hey, I'm right with you. I would not listen to this podcast with me just talking, basically 45 to an hour every single episode when I'm just talking to myself. So for you guys that listen to me and just speaking as myself, kudos to you, because I do not know how you do it. And especially when I go on tangents, when I go on rants, when we go over an hour, you guys are still listening every single week. So I appreciate you. And as I said earlier, no preview episode for Atlanta United unless I get surprised and somebody says, hey, I want to preview this episode and I cover Atlanta United. Let me come on the podcast. If that happens, great. But I don't see that happening. So we'll be back. And that game's 4 o'clock on Sunday, right? So we should theoretically be recording an episode right after the game. And then Monday, you guys should have an episode. Fingers crossed, hopefully. But we shall see, because I thought you guys would have an episode Monday morning. Did not happen, and here we are Tuesday evening. You guys are listening to the pod. Well, Wednesday morning, I'm sure most of you guys are listening. So, as always, I appreciate the support. But until then, my name is Todd, and this is The Free Kick Podcast.